Hello everyone, and welcome to Elliot and the Evil Sorcerer. Written by Rylan Mason and narrated by me, Brian Shepard. Episode 1. Fate. Our story begins in Exeter, New Hampshire. If you are unfamiliar with Exeter, New Hampshire, you will become familiar with it by the end of the story. Living in Exeter is Elliot Fairchild. Elliot is a 23-year-old recent graduate of the Seacoast School of Technology and currently is the librarian for Exeter. You see, back in 1965, there was a UFO sighting in the neighboring town of Kensington, which brought in a lot of mystery and debate as to whether or not it actually happened. Hearing about the news of a potential UFO sighting and how humans could be so gullible to think that there's actual extraterrestrial life made it easy for the paranormals to move right in. Paranormals, you ask? Well, paranormals are magical beings that could look like you and me. However, there were witches, vampires, warlocks, and other creatures that we don't need to get into right now. What we need to do is focus on Elliot. Elliot, of course, is a warlock. He only recently found out because his aunt, who took him in when he was 7 after losing his mother, told him all about his father, the family line, and everything that it meant. At first, he didn't believe her. He had led a normal life, went to public schools, had friends, went to college, and now to learn that he is some magical being with superhuman strength and abilities, she must be crazy. However, for the last 2 years, his aunt has been showing him the craft and spells and what he is able to really do. Mind you, magic is not permitted to be performed in front of humans, so this all has to be in the comfort of home. He is not the only paranormal. His 2 best friends, Allison and Derek, are also paranormals. Allison is a witch, and Derek is a vampire. It was revealed to Elliot on his 21st birthday that Allison and Derek were sent to watch over him, to become friends with him and help guide him and prepare him. At the time, this made no sense to Elliot, as Elliot was a reader. And this is the other reason why he became the librarian, as you could always find Elliot's nose stuck in a book, a fantasy book. So when Allison and Derek revealed themselves and their true nature as to why they were there, he was confused, as it clearly states in most, if not all of his fantasy books, that warlocks hunted witches, and vampires were their own, never really bothering with anyone else, and disliked wolves. So, how is it that they're here to protect him and guide him? Is there more to this? But they haven't said. And to prepare him for what? All they say is, it's not time yet. Miss May, you borrowed that book last week. Holding and reading the cover to the book that May placed on the counter. May Witherby was in her 70s and always in a chipper mood. Instead of dwelling on her husband's death, she now gardens. This would be the 3rd time she has borrowed How to Grow and Maintain JFK Roses. It would be easy for Elliot. One snap of his fingers and he would be able to fill the town with big, beautiful white roses. Sadly for May, who seems to be having trouble keeping them alive, says otherwise. I know, yet there has to be something I'm missing. I plant them, water them, and then within a week, they're dead. I don't understand, she said, frustrated that her $100 garden project has now turned into 500. Maybe it's the soil. You might try to mix in some other soil, say Miracle Grow. My aunt uses it, and it works for her, he suggested as she looked down at the book, as if she was considering what he was saying. That, and she was the last patron, for the library closes at 9. It being a Friday, Elliot was supposed to meet up with Allie and Derek at his aunt's. All right, I guess I'll skip it and try your suggestion. Can't hurt anything, she said as he smiled and turned to walk away from the desk. It will work, Miss May. You'll see, he replied as he walked in front of her to hold the door and to lock up for the night. Have a good night, Miss May. I'll see you soon, he said before she turned after walking down the front steps, one at a time, and reaching the bottom, turned and waved before getting into her car. Now that the library was closed, it was time to clean up and do some returns by checking them back in and going and pulling them from the shelf. As Elliot made his way around the library, placing books back in their spots, he stopped to listen. Silence. Elliot was used to the silence, being the only one working. The library had 2 during the day and afternoon, while at night there was 1 person. Tonight, however, sounded too quiet. It was so quiet that if a pin dropped, it would be very loud. On the second floor, and placing the last book on the shelf in the fantasy section, of course, he took the book out. He could see that the new books had been added as he skimmed the titles, just to make sure he didn't miss a good book. There were 2 he'd already noticed. Okay, I've got to go. I'll check these out Monday, he said to himself as he knew Allie and Derek would be waiting. He began to walk away from that section of the library when he heard what sounded like a book falling off a shelf and hitting the floor. This had Elliot on alert. The doors are locked, and he is technically the only one here. He senses no other presence in the library. As he begins to walk past the shelves, looking down each row, so far he finds nothing. It wasn't until he stepped up to the local history section that Elliot saw the book lying on the floor. Walking over and bending down to pick it up, he noticed that the book looked old. Leather cover, stitched on the cover under what looked like a dragon wrapped around a crown. Elliot was intrigued by the delicate colors of the stitching work, and underneath it said, Rensea. As soon as Elliot muttered the name, the book began to shake, and as it did, Elliot dropped it. The book lit up, and as it opened, the pages were flipping back and forth really fast until it went backwards slowly to reveal page 1. It was then that Elliot could feel a wave of emotions that felt like they were coming from the book. Warmth, comfort, desire, love, mixed in with sadness, loneliness, hurt, and pain. Yet, as he was going through all of these emotions, words appeared on the page. Hello, mate. Now that the book had calmed down, Elliot picked it up. As he did, the words disappeared, and the book closed. This has magic all over it. And what did it mean by mate? Thank you for listening to episode 1